It's a group effort of guys who are committed to the project, who, wanted to share this story with the world. Frankly, we need to wake up Christians. We need to wake up of what's going on with radical Islam, what's going on here in the West, and what happened to Israel on October 7th, 2023. And, there was humans involved, and we wanted to tell their stories.
As the horrific, horrible history of October 7th comes round again for the second anniversary, as Israelis have to process just what went wrong. How did we miss it? What did we endure? Where are we going? Where was God in all of this? As Christians around the world, certainly in the United States and Canada, but all over the world, are processing the second anniversary of October 7th and asking similar questions. And what does this mean for the church? How are we supposed to respond? But how do we really understand what really happened that day? We've read about it, we've heard about it, but do we really understand? And are we really able to bear witness to what happened on October 7th, 2023? Well, there's a new documentary film that tells this story and tells it beautifully. Well, beautifully is hard to say. I don't want to say it that way. It is powerful. It's a difficult film. It's a wrenching film, but it is a truthful film. And we're going to talk to the host and producer of this film today, right here on Inside the Epicenter. Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg, founder and president of the Joshua Fund and host of the Inside the Epicenter podcast. We're very encouraged by how many of you have come and found this long-form conversation about what's happening in Israel and among the Palestinians and throughout the Arab Muslim world, the Iranian, Persian Muslim world, and so forth, because there aren't enough sources in this world where Christians feel like, or others feel that they can turn and get trustworthy, credible information about what's really happening in region that I call the epicenter. And that's what this podcast is designed to do. And amazingly and totally by God's grace, and each of you that are watching and listening and sharing, telling others, hey, you should also watch and listen. This podcast has grown from the middle of nowhere, like just one of millions of podcasts, to in the top 1% now of all podcasts in the world. And we're just deeply humbled and encouraged that you're looking for this type of information. This podcast, Inside the Epicenter, is sort of the flagship educational project of the Joshua Fund, the ministry that Lynn and I started almost 20 years ago in 2006 to help educate and mobilize Christians to bless and love and support Israel and her neighbors in the name of Jesus. And we help on the humanitarian relief side. We help on strengthening pastors and churches and to fulfill the Great Commission. We help reach the neighbors with the gospel and plant churches and grow churches in the Arab, Muslim, and other parts of the Muslim world. But we also try to educate. This is one of the critical needs as the world turns against Israel, and so many lies are being told against Israel and the Jewish people. It's important that the Christian church, the true followers of Jesus who follow the truth, the way, the truth, and life, the Lord Jesus Christ, speak the truth and counter lies and help engage people who might be interested, but also who might be thinking, I don't believe anything you guys say or do. And that's a big part of what the Joshua Fund does, this educational mission. Well, all that brings us to a very interesting topic today, which is as we are honoring and remembering what happened on October 7th, 2023, most people in the world, even most Christians, just don't really know. They've heard about it, but it was either 2 years ago and they've moved on, or they're not quite sure if what they've heard is from the media and is that true, or do they really know what happened? And that's why this show is so important. And I want you to share it with other people because there's a new film, a documentary film called October 7th, bearing witness to the massacre. And it was produced and hosted by my guest today, filmmaker, Christian, and a man who cares very much about speaking the truth and speaking it in love, Todd Moorhead. Todd, thank you so much for being on this edition of Inside the Epicenter. Welcome.
Yeah, Joel, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to say that I watched this film, in an advance full copy that you sent me, as did my team, and I got to say how much I appreciate this film. Like I lived through October 7th. We were in Israel. We, as both as a journalist and as the head of two different ministries, we've experienced so many facets. I don't want to say every facet because we didn't live on the border with Gaza. So we weren't there the day it happened. We were in Jerusalem, but we got many of the 13,000 missiles that were fired at Israel that day from Hamas and their allies in the Gaza Strip. But as much as we know, Lynn and I, because of living there as Israelis and our sons in the army and ministry partners that we have, what was so important and powerful about your film, October 7th, is it really does focus just on that day. You could have focused on the war that followed. That's important. But I think you did something right to just say what actually happened that day. Let's talk to eyewitnesses. Let's walk through the places where these atrocities happen. Let's try to understand the context, the religious and geopolitical context, the spiritual dynamic, but let's let people just share their stories of what they saw, what they experienced, and what it means. And so I want to thank you for this film. And my first question is really big picture. Why did you decide, let's tackle such a tough topic?
Yeah, well, we were actually right in the middle of creating a docuseries at the time, and we had done episode 1. And it was about 30 days later that October 7th, 2023 happened and shook the world. We knew that Israel would never be the same. We knew that the world would never be the same. We had seen other skirmishes and other wars with Gaza, and we knew about Hamas, and we knew what they would do and try and how the world would react. And to add to that, soon after those events, we began to see the reports on social media, people saying, well, Hamas is just doing like what anybody else would do living under 75 years of occupation, which we knew was categorically false, completely historically inaccurate. And we thought we needed to set the record straight, not only of the history of Gaza, but we needed to be boots on the ground and bear witness to the most horrific day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and a day that Israelis say should obviously never happen because of the state of Israel, because the Jews can protect themselves. And it happened. So
one of the things that's interesting to me is that you got access to footage that previously had been classified. I had brought one of the first evangelical leader delegations to Israel not long after October 7th. I asked then former governor Mike Huckabee, now he's the ambassador of the United States to
Praise
Israel.
God.
Extraordinary developments that God has really raised him up for such a time as this. But at the time, we were just dear friends, TBN colleagues, and so forth. And I said, he was my first call. I said, Mike, I think we need to bring a group of evangelical leaders, influential leaders over here to bear witness. We can use a TBN crew. We're getting closer to Christmas, and people are just beginning to realize, okay, is it even safe enough to go? Yes, the Israeli military and political world are willing to help us figure this out, but can we get anyone to go? I think if you go, Mike, then I think we'll be able to persuade a few others to take the risk. And he immediately, he did not even hesitate. Mike did it and brought a number of others. And on that trip, Mike and I had a personal meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu in one of his secure, undisclosed bunkers. And it was a really interesting meeting. And one of the things he asked us would we help get the word out about what was really happening, including helping to show evangelical leaders and influencers this 45-minute classified IDF film comprised of various GoPro footage and CCTV footage and so forth of the jihadists of Hamas going into these Israeli communities. How did you get access to that material? I'm encouraged that they let you, because I think that material, and I want to just signal to our audience, when you watch the film, it is not a horror film. The topic is horrible, but I think, Todd, you did a really good job, you and your colleagues, to not let this get saturated in, this is not Freddy Krueger. This is not, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It could have been. If you really said, let's just show you what happened. Then it's basically a long snuff film.
Yes.
And that would have been I don't know if it would have played a purpose. The 45-minute classified IDF version plays a purpose because they're not just letting it out for everybody to see, but they want people who are influencers to see it for themselves. But I think you guys have done a very interesting job of talking to secular and very influential Israelis in the military, in the political sphere, journalists. You're also talking to Messianic Jews. You're talking to evangelicals. You're talking to Palestinians. You're taking people sort of behind the scenes. And so, but you did use some of this footage. How did that happen? And why did you decide to use it?
So this may surprise you or not. I'm not sure. We did go through the Israeli government to try to help us get footage, not necessarily of all sorts of footage. And like our other films, we reached a dead end, just crickets, nothing.
Oh, really?
Some people tried to help. No, in the end, it couldn't happen. Oh. And the footage that you saw was a result of our director and editor, Jesse Schluntz, who does an absolutely amazing job, puts his heart into every project. He found late in the edit, he found the raw footage on Telegram where there was a Hamas channel and all the same stuff.
Wow.
And it was better quality than anything that was previously, ripped from other sources. Ripped, I mean, that's a technical editorial term. And so that's how we got the footage that people think is we got it from the Israeli government, because that's the only other place that people have seen it. But yeah, that's kind of the inside to how Jesse Schluntz came up with that.
You have a really interesting style, Todd, and I know it's part of your team and Justin and Jesse and the others, but you're the host, and this is a driving passion of yours. One of the things I think so. Again, I'm going to shift from talking to you directly for a moment, talking back to to our audience to say you do need to see this film. And I didn't think that everybody should see the classified version, and not everybody could. It required very special permissions, and we set up things on college campuses, and we set up things at the Israeli embassy, even, and so forth. But this is the film that people should see, particularly as Christians. But you don't need to be a Christian to see this film. And I think you've done a tasteful job. I mean, you're dealing with a horror, but it's not, scene one, shot one, we're watching a horror. Like it allows you as a viewer to ease into this pool and to move from the shallow end towards the deeper end. And then it brings you back into the middle, into the shallow, so that you're not just wading into this horror. It gives you a lot of context. It gives you a lot of personal, emotional reactions and perspectives. But the other thing that's part of this, and now I'm shifting back to you, Todd, I think it's an interesting style because there's so much to say. But in this film, one of the things that struck me, and I'm a film major from Syracuse University who hasn't made a lot of films.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And documentary films is a passion of mine, but we haven't done that many over the years. But there's a lot of quiet in this. There's a lot of we're driving, or we're in a drone shot over the hills of Jerusalem or Judea and Samaria or the Gaza border or wherever. You give people time, and this is the way I'm reading it, but you can tell me from your own sort of artistic approach. I feel like you give people a lot of hard things to think about, but then you give people time to absorb this and think about it and watch and listen and not just be getting a fire hose of information. And I think that's a very interesting choice. I think it's the right choice. I'm not sure I would have made it. So I was encouraged as I was watching it. Wow, I'm getting time to think. I'm getting time to process my emotions. What was your, sort of from an artistic perspective, how did you and your team think about how are we going to tell this story? Because I think of one more thing. I think of the words of Jesus in John 12:49. The translation that I memorized as a young person was, "The Father commands me what to say and how to say it." It's not just about the truth that we're supposed to communicate, and we can't say everything. So, Lord, what do you want me to communicate? But how do you want me to communicate? So how do we tell the story is a key element of being a communicator, in this case, being a filmmaker. So how did you approach the how to tell this terrible story?
Well, we have an amazing team. Justin Crone, the other creator and producer, and Jesse Schluntz, who I mentioned, the director and editor, and we worked really closely together. And we've been making films together for quite a long time. So we have a style, and we trust Jesse as well. And so it's a group effort of guys who are committed to the project, who, wanted to share this story with the world and wanted to, frankly, we need to wake up Christians. And I hear you say that quite often, Joel, in certain words. We need to wake up of what's going on with radical Islam, what's going on here in the West, and what happened to Israel on October 7th, 2023. And, there was humans involved, and we wanted to tell their stories. For me, being there on the ground, it was the only way. When I came home, people would say, what was it like? And the only thing I could say is, well, have you been to a Holocaust museum? Because that's what it felt like. It felt like death. It felt like you could, and Joel, you were there. I could sense the evil that was there and that had happened there. It was like in the air. I was standing in the forest of Reim where I was doing an interview with one of
Describe Reim just for a second to give context.
Reim is where the Nova Music Festival was. And it's where many people were tied up and butchered to death and girls were raped. And we were in that forest, and I was conducting a 4-hour interview. And it was just to know what was going on there, and it just to feel it. It was just horrific. So we wanted people to be able to feel that, yet hear the stories and the humanity and what people went through that day and surviving it. Because, we hear from survivors in the film, interview a former hostage that was released in that early November release, and to hear their stories. And we weave in the voices like Anat Wilf and Daniel Gordis and Miri Eisen, who are just incredible historians and educators. And, we tell the story of the day through the people we encountered. And kudos, our team is amazing. Jesse is amazing. Justin's amazing.
I think the most powerful is that this is a watchable film. And that would sound like a timid and sort of weak endorsement of a different topic, a film about a different topic. But this is a film where people are going to, the instinct, Todd, the instinct is, I'm not watching that movie.
That was my instinct.
I don't want to go there.
Yep.
And I think it's important, therefore, that those of us who have seen it to say, this is watchable. You can see this. Now, you shouldn't see this, I think, with kids under, depending on your kids, under 18, maybe under 15, without you as a parent watching it first. I really strongly encourage you, watch it. I think you'll say that, yes, this is a watchable film for adults and for kids of a certain age and certain sensibility. I know friends of ours whose kids are traumatized by even kids' movies. Like they just have a different sensibility, and their kids didn't do well with Herbie the Love Bug movies from, like this car is attacking somebody, and squirting oil. Like they were at an age where like a car shouldn't attack somebody, right? And so those kids had a different sensibility at that age, at those ages. I mean, they're older now, and so you as a parent know what your kids are capable of. But I wouldn't just sit down as a family and just watch this without a parent having watched it ahead of time, just so that because even though this is a watchable film and it's not a slash and burn and it's not a horror film, but this is an intense topic. It's actually an intense set of topics. And there are images that either get pretty close to or are, things because this is true. And this is horrible. And this is demonic. I believe there's no other way. If all, 2 years worth of reporting, everybody I talked to who were there, who did see this, who are in the streets and alleyways of Gaza fighting, they all believe this is demon possession, what we're dealing with. And so that is a grim and hard and dark topic. So I just want to caution people, but should you watch it? Yes. As a pastor, I would encourage you and your senior staff, watch it and then make an evaluation. My encouragement would be to watch it and then plan a Sunday night, a Wednesday night, some event and invite people to come, but the week before, from the pulpit on a Sunday morning, share why you're doing it, what this is, and give some guidelines based on your own having watched it, you and your senior staff, and assessing how you want to explain it to people. But I believe people do need to bear witness, and this is an important film. We are talking about a new documentary film that is out right now, and it's called October 7th, Bearing Witness to the Massacre. And this is about the horrific events of October 7th, 2023. The film deals with the horror and the context. How did this come about, and what was driving it, and how did people react to it? What did they see? How did they bear witness? And what do we do about it? How do we process all this? But it's a film that you can not only can see, you should see it, but it's watchable. In other words, it's not a horror film. It is a film that's going to deal with major difficult issues, and there will be a few scenes that are hard to watch. But believe me, I've watched a lot of classified IDF footage taken from the GoPro cameras of the terrorists themselves. They were glorying in this, and I have seen things that are not in this movie, not in this documentary, that I would not want my own children to watch. And 3 of them have served in the Israeli army. I don't even want them to watch that, but they probably need to. Maybe they already have. I want to do this. We're going to watch a trailer right now, the official trailer for this October 7th documentary. This is the film to watch. And as a pastor, as a ministry leader, as a parent, as a Bible study, home fellowship leader, I want to encourage you not only to watch this film, but once you've watched it, you can encourage adults to watch it, but I want you to be careful. I think young people should see it. I think youth group leaders should process it and discuss it with their senior pastor and elders. What's the right way to handle it? But this is the most important story of the Jewish people since the Holocaust and the foundation of the state of Israel on May 14th, 1948, and then the months that followed what became known as the War of Independence. This is the singular game-changing moment of the Jewish people. The murder, the slaughter, the brutal murder of more Jews on one day, 1,200, than any day since the Holocaust. That's how big a deal this is. How could it happen? There's a lot of questions that are tied up into it. But what happened, that's the subject of this film. Let's watch the trailer, and then I want to come back and continue my conversation with the host of the film, the producer of the film, Todd Moorhead. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Hamas, it's an Islamist jihadist movement that is not a national movement for the liberation of Palestine, but actually a religious movement that is seeking to establish an Islamic state in the Middle East and in the entire world.
We see messages calling for holy war against Israel.
Gaza, this is the weaponization of an entire urban landscape for the purpose of waging war.
That's the Gaza border. Most of the Hamas come here.
And those Hamas operatives are trying to break through
that fence and get to the kibbutzim and kill people. This border is not going to be penetrated.
October 7th, the nation woke up to a nightmare.
Exactly what Israel had promised Israelis would never happen to them, happened to them.
The events of October 7th, 2023, sent a shockwave across the world. But most people still don't have a clear picture of what happened, or why. I came here to see, to listen, and to share the stories of many who lived through the darkest day in Israel's history.
Welcome back to Inside the Epicenter. I'm Joel Rosenberg, founder of the Joshua Fund and the president of the ministry and your host for this. I think you can get a sense of what this film is and where it's going. And I want to encourage you. This film is out now, and therefore, Todd, talk to us about where can people see it. When we say it's out, we're not talking about at the Cineplex. So how do people watch it? Walk us through.
Yeah, two ways. One, it's available on all main streaming platforms worldwide. We're talking like Apple TV, Amazon Prime Video, places like that.
That's amazing, first of all. That's a big deal. And I think it's a real blessing and God's favor on this film to be able to say that and not just say, well, there's this obscure little website someplace that you can find it if you can find that site.
Yeah, it's going to be accessible to everybody. And the other way is to actually host it at your church, synagogue, your community, host a screening. Like you said, Joel, everybody needs to see this film, especially Christians. But I think it's for everybody because if people actually knew what actually happened, we've kind of maybe already forgotten the aftermath of the war. And now we're inundated with really, really bad press. And from mainstream media, what's happening. And we need to see this film. People need to wake up and realize what is going on, not only in Israel, but also around the entire world, because this doesn't just affect Israel. Israel's on the West, on the front lines fighting for the Western civilization, and people have no idea what's going on. Amen. They're so busy calling the IDF baby killers and whatever other crazy things. It's just hard to imagine the stuff that's going on in this world compared to what the truth is.
That's true. And I think that particularly young people do need to see this, again, with parental and pastoral caution and thinking it through and what's the appropriate way. With the assassination of Charlie Kirk, this is a big problem for lots of reasons. It was horrible in its own right, but you've got the most effective champion and advocate for Israel and the Jewish people has just been taken off the game board, as it were. Charlie had a great biblical love and passion for Israel and the Jewish people because of his love for Jesus, the Word of God from Genesis through Revelation, where he and his friend Tucker Carlson parted paths. They agree on so much, but on this, there are some other things too, but on this, Tucker has gone towards the anti-Israel, arguably the most effective and hostile voice against Israel on the right in the United States. And Charlie was the exact opposite, the most effective, most passionate, most knowledgeable pro-Israel advocate, even though he didn't agree with everything that the Israeli government would do. That's true of me, and I'm an Israeli. But he was a vigorous defender of God's love and heart and plan and prophetic purpose for Israel and Jewish people. And now one of those two was gone. And in his absence, this film becomes even more important. It would have been important anyway, because you can talk about these things, but a picture's worth 1,000 words. And it's not just the horror of that moment. It's people talking about what happened, listening to a survivor of what happened, who was held hostage in those terror dungeons. I've been in those terror dungeons, and I've interviewed numerous hostages who suffered, some for 50 some days, some for one for 484 days. And until you've really met those folks and listened to their stories, you can't fully understand the horror of what was going on in those dungeons. So, all right, now when you say, Todd, you want churches to host viewings and things like that, how do they do that? What's the website, the official website of the film, and what are the resources there?
Yeah, October7film.com. It's all very easy to follow. On the homepage, you can click on the button that says host a screening. You fill out some simple information to give to us. You get a screener link so you can watch it. And that's it. It's free. There's no charge. There's no screening fee. We just want the world to see this.
That's great. So I want to reiterate the website, October 7, and that's the number 7, October 7, number 7, film.com. We will put that link as the first of several links in the show notes. So if you're driving and you're thinking, oh, what did they just say? Or wherever you are, you're out running, you're doing dishes. When you get a moment, go to the show notes and you'll see the link. And that will take you to a place that can show you the official trailer. You can watch the teaser. You can click on, as Todd just said, host a screening, and then it walks you through what to do. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You can download photos from their gallery. And then there's more information about the film and how you can become a sponsor of the film and learn more and so forth. Todd, as you've been building up towards this release, and congratulations again, it's out, it's moving, and you're doing it in the days ahead of the actual second year anniversary of October 7th. What are your hopes? What are your team's hopes? What are your prayers, and how can we pray with you? What are your objectives?
Yeah. As you know, Joel, there's a vicious satanic narrative against the Jewish people, and it's well crafted, and it's very effective. And it's not only taking out non-Christians, it's taking out Christians as well. And my hope is that through the people watching this film, it sets them on the right path, that they realize the truth of what happened that day, the truth about Israel, the truth about radical Islam and groups like Hamas and what they want to do. You know, first they want to go after the Saturday people, the Jewish people, and then we're next, the Sunday people. And I really hope that Christians wake up and start praying for Israel, the peace of Jerusalem, praying for, like you always say, Joel, their neighbors as well, you know, praying for the Arab people, praying for the salvation of all, and get involved. And get involved could be just prayer, you know, or share the movie with a friend. But the younger generation is so confused. So I've been fielding quite a lot of questions from, you know, people in their 20s. And because of Tucker and Candace Owens, they are so confused of what's going on. And they think they're safe sources, and they're absolutely not safe sources. At times they have it seems like they have no idea what they're talking about. But people they don't know that.
Tucker really, literally, I watched him say it, literally said just the other day, he doesn't really know if Hamas would be considered a radical Islamist jihadist organization. And I just thought, oh my gosh, Tucker is completely lost this topic. I mean, you know, that doesn't mean I don't agree with him on some things, but he is expressing something in his heart that if you can't look at Hamas and say what about 100 countries have declared, the United States included, Hamas is an officially linked, designated terrorist organization for all these umpteen reasons. If Tucker can't even accept that, it's hard to understand what in the world are we supposed to listen to him about in all these other areas related to Israel in the Middle East.
And
but he's not alone and having a huge impact on people.
Right, and he's spotlighting people like Munther Isaac, who are Palestinian Christians, replacement theology through and through, have spent their entire careers fighting against Israel, the state of Israel, and going all over the West and fighting, writing books, and eating out of their hands, like not asking one question that a journalist would ask.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to Ted Cruz, that was a vicious interview. I guess they're apparently friends too. I couldn't believe it. I guess if you're going to do that to one person, do it to the other. But it was, oh man. I mean, I wish Ted knew the Bible verse, Genesis 12:3 and stuff. But still, it was vicious and very snarky. And yeah, I pray that Tucker, God gets a hold of his heart for his people.
Yeah.
This is God's heartbeat.
You mentioned Munther Isaac, and that's important. There are, of course, there are, unfortunately, let's say, Palestinians who, profess faith in Jesus Christ and yet hate Israel and seem to hate the Jewish people. Now, they wouldn't say, oh, no, I hate Jewish people. But they are delegitimizing. A person like him is consistently, aggressively, and unashamedly trying to delegitimize the right of Israel to exist and to be able to defend itself against genocidal murderers. And every Israeli citizen who is part of the nation state that he undermines and criticizes and attacks, I think so unfairly. Look, there's plenty of criticisms to be had of Israel. Israelis themselves are having a huge knockdown, drag out debate over Prime Minister Netanyahu's policies and what's the best way to fight this war and what's the best way to get hostages back and all, how did we miss October 7th? How did Netanyahu miss it? A lot of questions to be had. And so criticisms are not illegitimate, but there is a way to love and show support for a group of people that are under attack from genocidal forces on all directions, or to be part of the effort to delegitimize and undermine Israel and its sovereignty and its security and its safety. So, but I want to say, and this is very important, there are Palestinians, many Palestinians who love Jesus, who definitely would not call themselves a Zionist. They're not. They don't believe in that God has given a biblical command to Jews to come back to the land, that he's prophetically drawing Jews back and rebuilding the nation state of Israel based on Bible prophecy. They're very hesitant or opposed to that type of thinking, but they believe that they're supposed to love their neighbor, and the Jews of Israel are their neighbors, and they're trying to figure out how to do that well and right and reconcile without having to buy all the theology and politics of it. And there are some Palestinians who do actually believe in biblical Zionism, but they've got to be very careful, and so they're usually not outspoken.
Right. They're very hard to find.
Some are actually,
very
but
hard to find.
Yeah,
they're in hiding.
And I think that's important as we think about this. And Todd, in our last few minutes together, you have a real interest, and I would say a real heart for both the Israelis and the Palestinians. I want you to talk a little bit about your previous film, Hope in the Holy Land, because that was a great film. Love that. And I want you to talk about what that film was about and how these two films now go together and what you did to lean into the story of the Palestinians, including Palestinian Christians, as well as Israeli Jews and Messianic Jews. And so, because I think it's important for our viewers and listeners to understand a little bit more in a broader picture about who you are and how you come at this complicated, challenging part of. I was going to say the little part of the woods, neck of the woods, but I would say really our little corner of the sand.
Yeah. So in 2012, I came out with my first film, and it was called Promised Land: Israel Through the Eyes of Surfers. And through that film, Justin Crone and I became very good friends. So Justin's the producer and other creator of both Hope in the Holy Land and October 7, Bearing Witness to the Massacre. And it was through my friendship with Justin when he showed me the film With God on Our Side. There's one called Little Town of Bethlehem. And they're anti-Israel films put out by the Christian community that would say that Israel is a foreign occupying force. They're, right. The only reason Christians support them is because of dispensationalism. We should not be supporting them because they're persecuting the Palestinians. And it's just a false narrative. And I said to Justin, we've got to make a film. And he goes, I haven't made a film. And I said, Justin, I just did it. I think we could do it. And that set us on this 7-year journey to make Hope in the Holy Land, delving beneath the surface of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which came out 2021, which is also on Amazon Prime and Apple TV. Okay. And that film it's a journey it's like a heart journey for me, because I would say that I've always loved Israel. Like, I became a believer when I was 4. I accepted Jesus into my heart. And sometime on the coattails of that decision, a love for the Jewish people and the land of Israel followed suit. And it was before preteens. And
that from your parents, from your church?
I don't know how it happened. It was a God thing, because my parents were both believers, but they didn't instill that. I was just always fascinated. And Joel, I thought it was totally normal. I thought every Christian feels this way. And then I met my wife and she said, no, this is kind of weird. But joking aside, it's something that I've always had a passion with. And being friends with so many Israelis, and then knowing that Palestinians were, quote unquote enemies, that all the wars happened with the Palestinians and Arabs. I thought, the enemy of my friend is my enemy, I guess. And I kind of feel like the Palestinians are just getting in the way of God's plan for Israel. And I realized that was, I had a wonderful professor, Dr. Judith Rood at Talbot. And she helped me, it was a couple semesters where her and I just talked about this stuff. And while I was making the film and going on this journey, I was praying for God's heart for the Palestinians. And I realized that it's not okay. I have to have God's heart for the Palestinians. And we set out to make a film that is unbiased and tells the truth. Lets the Palestinians speak for themselves. Lets the Israelis speak for themselves. And I give my comments at the end, and the viewer can make their decision on most questions that people have about the conflict. And so that's what we did. And it's really helped people. It's helped Christians who love Israel gain God's heart for the Palestinians and Arabs, and it's helped people. I've met Christians who couldn't stand Israel, and they had more of a heart for Arabs than Palestinians, and God completely used it to change their hearts through Bible study as well and God's word, and now they have God's heart for both people, and it's not one or the other over the other. It's God's heart for both. And I really, after making that film, I don't know if you agree, but I believe that what's good for Israel is good for the Palestinians too.
Yeah, and I think, yes, one of the crazy parts of what's happening in terms of all the global criticism is, and this is particularly true of the criticisms coming from the Arabs of Israel's fight against Hamas. I know personally from talking to every single one of these Arab leaders, their foreign ministries are blasting Israel for their fight to destroy and vanquish Hamas and set Gaza free from Hamas's reign of terror once and for all. Every single one of those top presidents, kings, or crown princes hate Hamas because Hamas is the Palestinian offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. And every single one of these countries in the modern Arab world has banned the Muslim Brotherhood in their countries. And some of them have had actual wars to defeat the Muslim Brotherhood in their countries. President el-Sisi in Egypt led a war to destroy and bring down the Muslim Brotherhood that had taken over his country when the generals of Egypt had said for decades, do not let the Muslim Brotherhood genie out of the bottle. It will take over the country and it will burn the country down. And that's exactly what was happening. And then Chief of the General Army, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, decided, I can't watch it any longer. The people are crying out for freedom from the Muslim Brotherhood, from Mohammed al-Morsi, who was the Muslim Brotherhood, leader of Egypt that had been taken over. And the Egyptian army went to war to save the country, and it really was effectively a civil war. So it's pretty crazy, I got to say, and I say this with respect to President el-Sisi, but for him and his government to be so critical of Israel as we fight the Palestinian version of the vicious, wicked, radical Islamist movement that he went to war to defeat. Okay, what about Jordan? King Abdullah, I love him personally. I know him. He's a friend. I consider him a friend. But his government is acting like Israel is crazy for going to war to defeat Palestinian radicals. Well, King Abdullah's father, the late great King Hussein, literally went to civil war to defeat the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, Yasser Arafat, who was trying to take over. Arafat and the PLO was trying to take over Jordan. And King Hussein went to war, it's called Black September, 1970, and killed a lot of Palestinian radicals, and then drove the rest of them out of Jordan. They happened to go to Lebanon. Now, those are just two examples, but the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Bahrainis have all made the Muslim Brotherhood illegal. You cannot be in the Muslim Brotherhood in their countries. Even King Abdullah, in recent years, tried to make the Muslim Brotherhood legal just to sort of let the steam off and then watch them closely. But then the Muslim Brotherhood tried to collaborate and conspire to bring down King Abdullah. And so they arrested them all and banned them again. My point is there's a very terrible and unfair and unjust double standard going on in the Arab world against Israel as we try to fight this wicked Muslim Brotherhood offshoot. But it's also true throughout Europe and around the world. So anyway, I'm going on a little bit of a rant, and I apologize to you. But I think I want to bring it back to the original point. You have something that is a little, your love for Israel isn't crazy. Your love for both, that's a little bit crazy. But I mean that in a good way. It's a right crazy. It's not enough of you. May your tribe increase. Joshua talks about God is not a either or God. He's a both and God. And by this, we don't mean that God doesn't have a special love and plan and purpose for Israel. He does. But that's sort of like saying he has a special plan and purpose for men and a special plan and purpose for women. And they're complementary, but they are different. And that is true of the Jewish people, and it's true of the Palestinians. And you were reflecting that, and there aren't that many. And I think one of the reasons we're losing a lot of young Christians who are turning against Israel is they hear one side or the other. They hear all this rah-rah Israel, and they're like, where's the sympathy and the compassion for the Palestinians? And I'm not sure that they can always articulate it like you can, like Charlie Kirk could, like I am doing in our teams. But this is a problem for a lot of Christian young people because they feel like Israel has become Goliath. That's what they're being told, and that's the way it looks to them. And what about David? What about the underdog? And I think what you are doing in your films is you're telling the truth. I haven't seen anything that I mean, with an individual guest or, interviewer, I might say, oh, I don't agree with that or that. But your overall messaging and explanations, I think, are spot on. But they are not normal for most people because you're giving people a balanced approach.
Yeah.
I'm give you the last word on this.
This is polarized, right? It's a polarizing topic. So you're either for Israel and against the Palestinians, or you're for the Palestinians, you're anti-Israel. And we want to say, no, it's like you said, that's not how God works.
Yeah. Wrap up with how can we be praying for you and your team in these coming days and weeks as this film goes wider and wider, Lord willing?
Yes. So I would say number one, prayer and protection for our families, both Justin Crone and I, and Jesse Schluntz and his family, as I don't think Satan's very happy with what we're doing, but we serve the King of Kings. So we need prayer. We need to be just the peace of Jesus in our hearts as we go about spreading the truth. And then that more and more people, the film would catch like wildfire, that everybody would watch it, especially Christians. Pastors would pick it up. Entire congregations would watch it. And I would say that this is a time for Christians and Jews to get together and host a screening together. And that is happening. It's been happening with this film already when we did pre-screenings. And it's been amazing. Christians and Jews getting together, and friendships that have never been there are there after October 7th, 2023. So yeah, we covet your prayers. Cover your prayers for the success of this. And then that would be a great start.
Those are good prayers. Yeah. And I think that's a great idea. Pastors, once you and maybe your elders team or your pastoral team have watched it, not only plan a showing, I think you could even commit a Sunday morning service to it. You could a Sunday evening, a Wednesday evening, or even showing part of it and then asking people to come back that evening to see the rest, have a discussion, have a time of prayer for Israelis and for Palestinians. That'd be great. Connecting with a local rabbi or a group of rabbis and inviting them and their congregations to come and watch the film on a Sunday evening or a Wednesday night or whatever would also be very, very important. And talking this through, because this is a huge trauma in the Jewish community, not just Israel, but in the broader Jewish community. And the Jewish community feels so isolated and alone as anti-Semitism explodes. Who are the friends of the Jewish people today? It's Bible-believing Christians. And there aren't a lot of others. There are some. I'm not saying Christians are the only ones, but increasingly, I talk to Jewish leaders all the time, and they say, I don't even understand why you guys are our only friends, but I thought that group was our friends, and they'll name a political swath or a political party or a religious group or whatever. And they are feeling betrayed by so many and attacked with lies, and they're thinking, and it's scary. And the synagogues I've been to, all in the last 2 years in the United States, all have armed protection because of the concern. So let me close with a passage that has been something I've been thinking about from 2 Timothy chapter 3, and then we'll close the podcast. 2 Timothy chapter 3, beginning in verse 1, the Apostle Paul writes this: "But realize this, that in the last days difficult times will come. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips, without self-control, brutal, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of godliness, although they have denied its power. Avoid such men as these." That applies to a lot of different parts of society these days. You go to a lot of college campuses and say, okay, there are thousands of young people. This is who they are, and they need to be reached, right? But it's also true of what's happening, what has been happening in recent years in Gaza. And and there are people who are determined to say to you and to me, to others, to the world, we love God, and therefore we're going to kill and massacre Jews, right? And that embrace of radical Islamism is among the most dangerous forces on our planet today. We just honored and remembered the anniversary of September 11th, 2001, when only 19 people changed the face of America forever, killing almost 3,000 that one day, and changing airline travel and changing militaries and changing the face of the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, just 19 men plus their handlers and financiers and so forth. And just a small cabal of demon-possessed radical Islamists in a part of the world most people haven't even ever thought of. Gaza, the Gaza Strip, have changed the face of Israel forever and the rest of the Middle East. And a lot of that's coming from Iran. That's a larger conversation. But what this film does is it's about 90 minutes?
It's just under 2 hours.
Just under 2 hours. Okay. It went quickly in my view. So, all right, 2 hours. In 2 hours, this is a film that doesn't require you to understand every single thing about the Arab-Israeli conflict or the battle between Christendom and radical Islamism and Judaism. But it takes you into that one day and helps you understand it, understand what happened, why it happened, how it affected people. This film is not a film trying to explain the entire war since or all the geopolitical and spiritual ramifications of that day. It's just saying this one day, October 7th, 2023, is so important. You need to understand it. And maybe rather than a book or even a podcast, maybe a film is the way to go. Todd, I think you're right. I'm grateful to you and Justin and Jesse and your entire team. And I want to say thank you, not only for making this film and making it available to so many, but for coming on Inside the Epicenter today as well.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you for having me, and keep up the great work, because I think you're leading the way for a lot of us. So I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for giving something that we can be grateful for and to share with so many others. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching and listening to this episode of Inside the Epicenter. Check out the show notes for links, as we mentioned. Please be sure to give to the Joshua Fund. If you can become an Epicenter ally and become a monthly donor of $50 or $75 or $100 or more, it really helps us continue to do this work of blessing Israel and her neighbors in the name of Jesus. Until next time, thank you so much. And please share this edition of Inside the Epicenter with family and friends and invite them to watch this film and share that with others as well. Thank you. And we'll be back next time right here on Inside the Epicenter.
I'm Joel Rosenberg. On your left, you'll find some videos we've chosen specifically for you. We look forward to partnering with you to bless Israel and her neighbors in the name of Jesus.